Welcome to Disgruntled. Today, I think we're going to have a conversation about the recent goings-ons here in the state of Minnesota. As everybody in the world knows, but certainly everybody in the country knows, we had a madman running around the Twin Cities in Minnesota, assassinating or attempting to assassinate multiple, but assassinated one politician, a state legislature elected official, shot another one and his wife, and then he murdered another one and her husband. And it's all very fishy to me. It's all very fishy. At least what we're being told seems fishy. And so let's just kind of break this down a little bit. Because I mean, I don't, if you're a regular watcher of this show, you know that we don't claim, Jason or I, we don't claim to be geniuses, right? Like we don't know all the answers to all the things and all the questions. But what we're told seems a little bit fishy. And so let's break it down a little bit. And please forgive me if I miss a couple details, but I think I have the general idea down pretty good. So a member of our state legislature who is on the left, she was a Democrat, chose to side with the greater good of the state. Not necessarily that she agreed with the legislation. And if you don't know, she voted no on giving illegal immigrants in Minnesota free health care. And if you go back, if you haven't already, and you go back and watch the interviews that she did outside the House chambers the night of the vote, you will see that she was emotional. She was uneasy. She even made a comment that the Democrats were trying pretty hard to make people feel crappy, in her words, feel crappy for voting against care for illegal immigrants. Then she went on to say, they've done a pretty good job at that. And clearly she wasn't feeling good about her vote, but she saw herself as a leader. She saw herself as a person that had to decide what the greater good for the state of Minnesota was. Because the Republicans, apparently, in the legislature were saying, if we don't take away free health care for illegal immigrants because it's gonna put us even further in debt, we're not going to agree on a budget for the state. And so the state government would shut down. National Guard soldiers won't be paid. State employees won't be paid. Programs won't be funded. All kinds of things. I mean, we all know that a government shutdown can be pretty catastrophic to whatever body it is, right? If the federal government shuts down, everybody feels it. If the state government shuts down, everybody in this state will feel it. And so as she put it, I chose to decide what was best for the greater good of this country, or I'm sorry, of this state, and I voted no, so that we could get the budget passed and we could continue on with the work that we're here to do. The state could continue to run. And that was it. And then some days later, we hear that she was murdered. We hear that another state senator was shot, and his wife were shot but didn't die. At the time of this recording, they're still sitting in the hospital recovering from their gunshot wounds. And I don't know, I haven't heard, and maybe it hasn't been put out how severe their wounds are, but I would imagine if they're still laying in the hospital that they're pretty bad. And of course, anybody gets shot, usually it's spend some time recovering. So here's where it gets fishy for me. Vance Boelter goes out on this manhunt. It wasn't even a manhunt. He was stalking these people, it seemed. And the whole chain of events, as it was told to us by the BCA and told to us by the state attorney and all those people, a little weird. So he goes to the first politician's house. Apparently he had a list. He goes to the first politician's house. They apparently, allegedly, were on vacation. Nobody was there, so he took off. He went to a state senator, knocked on this guy's door, who answered the door with his wife. It was 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that. Demands that they open the door. He's dressed as a police officer. He's driving a Ford Explorer, what looked to be a police interceptor, but it could have been any Ford Explorer, with a light bar on it, dressed as a cop, with an external plate carrier, flashlights, handcuffs, a gun, all these things. And then as well, wearing a full face mask, a full mask. And the mask looked like it could have been like a Halloween mask of the guy from Breaking Bad. I've never watched Breaking Bad, which I've been told is blasphemy, but I've never seen it. But I think the guy's name is Walter. So he knocks on the door with a mask, dressed as a cop, emergency lights flashing on his vehicle in the driveway. Demands that they open the door. They open the door. He then tells them it's a burglary. They try to push him out of the house, and he shoots them both and takes off. Now, he didn't kill them. They're still alive. Then he goes to the next representative's house. And as he was sitting in the road, waiting to approach the house, he's another police officer, not another, but a police officer pulls up next to him, tries to talk to him, make contact. This officer says that she was sent there to do a welfare check. Boelter doesn't respond. He stays staring forward, never says anything. So she goes on to the house to do what she was called there to do. Well, this is red flag number one. Of course, they knew by that time, allegedly, as we were told, that the first representative was shot. Their children were in the house, called 911. Police responded, ambulance, they took him to the hospital. And so what we weren't told is there some kind of call tree? Is there some kind of like emergency call tree when things like this happen? Every representative gets a phone call? Maybe that's it, but they didn't say that. At least not that I've seen. And I've watched a lot of the footage and it all seems to be the same running together. Or was she called there by somebody else and sent to do a welfare check on this representative? Why was she called there? If the people in the house didn't call for a welfare check, and there's not some kind of call tree or some kind of emergency plan, at least that the public has been made aware of, and maybe it's none of our business, but I think that a lot of people are going to ask these questions. Why was that first officer sent to that representative's house to do a welfare check? If nobody knew what was going on, and if there wasn't some ulterior motive behind this, why were they sent there? So now Boelter takes off, and he ends up at Speaker Hortman's house. He gets out of his vehicle, parks in the driveway, again, emergency lights flashing, and goes to the door, knocks on the door, demands that they open it. And when they do open it, some words are exchanged. And they talk about how when the door was open, he had this flashlight, a pretty bright flashlight out, and blinding them, so to speak. When the flashlight came down, you could tell he was wearing a mask. I would imagine that this is how this all went down. But here's where it's fishy again. When he ends up at Speaker Hortman's house, the police pull up after him. When they pull up to the house and get out of the car, Boelter fires at him. Vance Boelter fires at them, and this shootout ensues. Well, again, why were those officers called to Speaker Hortman's house? And just like the last place, maybe there's a call tree. Maybe this is an SOP of the legislature that if things like this happen, everybody gets notified to shelter in place or whatever the case may be. But nobody who has put out any information is very clear on any of that. Why police were called and why they were showing up minutes behind Vance Boelter. If there's a call tree and local police are sent to all of these representatives' homes, why are they right behind him each time? The first place where he was approached by the female officer who went up to the house and Boelter took off was sometime before he ended up at Speaker Hortman's house. And then there, of course, they show up minutes after him and see him approaching the house. They get out of the car. Boelter opens fire. They exchange shots. Speaker Hortman and her husband open the door, or Boelter forces his way in, kicks it down maybe. I didn't really quite understand how the door was opened and how he got in there. But as he's in there, he murders them and then just slips away. And if you go back and get on X or wherever you can find pictures of the Hortman's home and see the amount of rounds that were fired at him, it makes you wonder if this guy is like Ethan Hunt, right? And Mission Impossible and just dodging bullets as they're being hurled at him. They shot a lot of rounds at him. and didn't hit him once. So as he runs through the house, he murders the two individuals and slips out the back and then disappears for 2 days. And as Governor Walz and all these other people that gave comments said, this was the greatest manhunt. Not the greatest. Nothing about it was great. But this is the most significant manhunt in the history of Minnesota. Well, hold on a second. You have officers hailing a barrage of bullets at him. He slips out the back, never to be seen for 48 hours, where they arrest him at some property he has up north. And so then you start thinking about, well, hold on a second, man. Like if all of these local police agencies are on alert because one state senator's already been shot and everyone's on edge and everyone's trying to do welfare checks of all these elected officials, how the hell does he get out of the Twin Cities? You know, I mean, of course it's possible, right? The cops can't be everywhere all the time. And so then we hear nothing. It's that the police are investigating. The FBI is on the ground and they're launching an investigation. All these other assets, the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension here in Minnesota, they're out on the street. They're looking. Everybody's looking for this guy all over the state. And then just magically, they find his cowboy hat on the side of some road somewhere, which of course is entirely possible. But it just kind of makes you think, wow, what's actually happening? And then as all of this is happening over 48 hours as he's fleeing and evading, we find out that he's connected to Tim Walz. We find out that his wife is apparently some kind of crackpot. She gets pulled over and stopped with money and IDs or passports or something, and all these guns and bullets and all kinds of shit. Clearly, she was, I don't know if she was a part of it, but clearly she was assisting him that day and getting away, or she wouldn't have had guns, ammo, money, passports, IDs, whatever it was that they found in her vehicle. But yeah, we don't ever really hear a lot about that, of course, till it's over. And I guess it's fair to assume that there wasn't a whole ton of information put out until he was in custody. But still, the connections, and of course, but media and content creators and things have been talking about this for the last few days, that there are all these connections, right? Governor Walz appointed him to some board. Governor Dayton, way back when, appointed him to some board. And it is true when they say that sometimes these governors or these elected officials, they don't really meet the people or know them, but they're recommended. And then the governors will, of course, sign the recommendations. They have conversations, but the governor never probably met this guy. And I believe that's probably true, maybe. Because that's a reasonable explanation. The governor never met him, but so-and-so recommended him. And, you know, his track record is this and this, and we really think he should be part of this. But if you look at Boelter's resume, he managed a 7-Eleven. He didn't really have a career in politics or nonprofit work or anything like that until a few years ago when he was appointed to some committee or board or whatever. And so if that's true, who vetted this guy? Who recommended him to the governor? Nobody's talked about that. If Governor Walz didn't know him, but appointed him anyway based on a recommendation, who are the people that recommended him? And where are they, and why aren't they being asked questions? And so, like, all of these things are just kind of fishy. And then we find out that Boelter's wife worked for Governor Walz when he was a member of Congress out on Capitol Hill. She worked for him there. So now there's two people, one of them pretty damn closely connected. And the other one is her husband, who apparently wasn't really all that connected to Governor Walz, but he was appointed by Governor Walz to some committee or some group or whatever. But then is it also reasonable to assume that Governor Walz and Boelter did probably know each other because his wife worked for the man? And so if those people stayed in contact, if Boelter's wife and Governor Walz stayed in contact, is it reasonable to believe that Vance Boelter and Governor Walz had some kind of relationship, a friendship of some sort? I think it's reasonable. and maybe that should be investigated. But more importantly, I think somebody should be asking questions about why all of these things are so closely intertwined, it seems. And then more importantly, who recommended this guy? Would you be surprised to know or hear that it might have been Boelter's wife who recommended him to some committee, and Governor Walz took her advice and took her recommendation and just signed the form, and boom, there he is? I think that's a reasonable assertion. Is it true? I don't know. So what else could be going on? Well, the plot thickens. Now we find out that Vance Boelter has 5 or 6 kids and a wife. But apparently, they may not have been living together, because then we saw interviews popping up of some dude, apparently he's a delivery driver for Papa John's, who has text messages from Vance Boelter after he committed these crimes, talking about that he made some bad decisions, things got out of control, things are bad. He didn't want to say too much and implicate his friend, or what they called roommate. So Vance Boelter wasn't living with his family, because he's got this roommate who delivers pizza for Papa John's, but also there's another person somewhere, somehow. The delivery driver, the pizza delivery driver, in front of all these cameras, is reading text messages from Vance Boelter that was sent to him, and they're saying things about how much Vance Boelter loves these guys. I love you guys. I'm going to be away for a while. I may be dead soon. I made some bad decisions. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to implicate you. All of these things, which sound to me like things that maybe he should have been telling his wife, but he wasn't living with his wife. Apparently. Is it safe to assume that Vance Boelter and the delivery driver and the other man referenced in the text messages are like a love triangle of some sort? If so, whatever, cool, do what you do. But it's all just kind of weird. And if Vance Boelter wasn't living with his wife and 5 or 6, I think it was 5 kids, or no, it was 6 kids. 5 or 6 kids. Why is she helping him evade the police? I mean, I guess people have different lifestyles, and who am I to judge any of those? So maybe they all got along, and it was it just is what it is. Okay, whatever. But the connections to Tim Walz, the connections to each other, but then there's 2 other men that apparently Vance Boelter's living with, and he's sending texts talking about how much he loves them and that he's sorry. But we didn't hear any of that going to his family. So it's all just kind of really weird. And I held off on making this video until what I believed were majority of the facts came out. And I'm sure that there's so many more facts that are going to come. But when every other video that you see, or every other article, or every other news report is repeating the same thing just over and over, well, that tells me we probably aren't going to get a whole lot of new facts anytime soon. I'm sure that they'll come here and there as they learn more. And at the time of this recording, I believe Vance Boelter had his first appearance in court. Still really haven't heard how that went down, or I haven't really researched it that much. But now they charged him with 4 or 5 charges. Maybe it was 6, and 3 or 4 of them carry the death penalty. They're all federal charges. But more than anything, I'm intrigued about the way all of it went down, the way that the police were just minutes behind him in 2 of the cases we were told about, 2 of the homes that he showed up to. And unfortunately, the last one he showed up to resulted in the murder of 2 people. 2 parents who have now left their 2 children, who are grown, however, still their parents. And how do all these people come together? How are they all connected? In what way? And why does it seem like we just get tidbits of information? And the people that are giving out the information can tell us, well, these are all the details that we have at this time, which we all know is bullshit, but they can't say everything while the investigation is active. So maybe some of these questions will be answered. I would like to know a couple things. When catastrophes like this happen to elected officials anywhere, but more importantly here in Minnesota where it did happen, what's the action plan? What's the SOP? Is there a call tree put in place to do police officers in every city all around the state? Are they all dispatched to go check in on our elected officials? Just in case there are things like this where there's a killing spree. And God knows how many more doors Vance Boelter would have knocked on had the police not shown up just minutes behind him. But why in 2 out of the 4 homes he visited, why were the police just right behind him? And all at different times. So if these I would think that if there is some kind of call tree, it's not really a call tree. It's probably more of like an emergency text thing. Like, you know how when there's an Amber Alert, when somebody steals a kid that we're actually told about, everybody's phone in America or in the region goes absolutely ballistic and flashes and has this emergency sound come out of it, and it flashes on the screen and tells you the information to look out for: a car, a physical description of the kidnapper, a physical description of the child, the name of the child, all these other things, the car they might have went to, the license plate if they got it, the last place they were seen, where they might be heading. There's all kinds of information. So is it similar to that? And then the police are automatically dispatched? Maybe. And I'll tell you this, if that's not the case, maybe it should be. But I was pretty intrigued when the initial stories came out. And then the head of the BCA and the state attorney and all of these bureaucrats in law enforcement were giving briefs. My question was, why were the cops just right behind him twice? The timeline is kind of unclear to me as well. From the time he knocked on the first door until was like 3:45 or 4 o'clock in the morning when he actually killed the speaker and her husband. Was it a couple hours? Was it 1 hour? And I'm sure that information's out there, but it would be safe to say, in my opinion, that law enforcement agencies that are cities that are next door to each other or 1 or 2 cities away, it would be safe to assume, I think, that they all should have been there, not at the same time, but remotely, not an hour or 2 apart. Because if we know one guy got shot here in town A, and the second place that Boelter showed up was 12 miles away, or it was 20 miles or 10 miles or whatever, it doesn't take an hour. And then after that, he went to another place where he was confronted by another police officer. Well, that was probably 30 minutes, 35 minutes, who knows how long. The point is, to get from point 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 allegedly was a couple hours maybe. And in 2 hours, within the vicinity of 3 or 4 cities, they hadn't checked on the 4 people. Just kind of, it's possible that there's nothing going on, that there's no treachery afoot. But it just seems weird to me. And then his connections to the governor, and maybe it's fair to assume that there may be nothing going on there either. But it's just weird, isn't it? It's fishy. And the shittiest part about all of this is that we will probably never know the truth. There'll be a lot of folks out there, and probably including me, with all kinds of theories and ideas and questions. Questions will go unanswered. Theories will be labeled conspiracy, and we'll just be told whatever it is they want us to tell, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And so maybe we'll get lied to, maybe not. At the end of the day, this was a tragedy. This woman, the speaker, stood up for what she believed was the right thing. She put her personal opinions and her personal convictions aside for the better good of the state of Minnesota. And as we said, clearly she wasn't very happy about it. She was sad. She also made comments that her side of the aisle was doing a pretty good job at making her feel like a piece of shit for voting the way that she voted. And what it tells me is every one of our Democrats in the Minnesota State House was okay with shutting down the state, shutting down the government, if we're not going to give illegal immigrants free health care, when there are American citizens, Minnesotans, who are going without, who can't eat, who don't have a stable place to live, who are down on their luck. They don't have the resources to do a lot of things. She was sad that people are going to lose their insurance, lose their coverage to get medical care. But we've talked a lot on this show. I've talked a lot on the Richard Leonard show on Rumble about this. At some point, we have to take a step to clean up our own backyard before we start helping anybody else clean up their backyard. And in my opinion, that's what Melissa Hortman did. That's what elected officials should be doing. It doesn't really always matter about your personal opinions and your personal convictions. When you are an elected official, your constituency voted you in there to look out for the betterment of all. And I believe that that's something that we've really lost in this country. And I commend her. I commend her for doing that. Even in her death, she has my utmost respect. We probably don't agree on a lot. We wouldn't have agreed on a whole lot of things. We probably wouldn't have agreed on a whole lot of issues. We would not have agreed on care for illegal immigrants. But what we do agree on is that she was willing to put aside her own personal issues and convictions and opinions for the betterment of the state of Minnesota, to keep the government running. But all of her colleagues on her side of the aisle were not willing to do that. They were willing to shut down the state, and it's unfortunate. And I'll tell you this, if the tables were turned and the Democrats were in charge and the Republicans were willing to shut down the state, I'd call all of them assholes too. We cannot shut down whole governments for issues, number one, that affect a small population in our state, but two, also are giving benefits and entitlements to people who are here illegally, especially when our own people are suffering. Just, it doesn't matter what side they're on. We should not be in the market to take away from our own people before we're given all of those resources to criminals and illegal aliens. Now, like everyone, not everyone, but most people have been saying, you got to go, come back and do it the right way, and you'll be welcome with open arms. You would by me. I agree with the idea that we need immigrants in our communities. We need that. The diversity of having a multicultural community is pretty cool. You get to learn about different cultures. A lot of times the food is good. Just meeting different people and the way that they go about their lives and their traditions. Some of it's pretty cool to learn. But there's a reason why becoming a United States citizen is hard. There's a reason why it takes a long time, because we can't we can't sustain that. So if you're not willing to go through the process, you're not willing to do what it takes, then unfortunately, you shouldn't get to be here. If you don't want to do what's required, then you got to find another place. I mean, I don't understand why that's such a difficult concept, but who am I, right? I mean, I'm just a dude who has his own opinions. And I like to think that my moral compass is pretty on track, that I like to do what's right for everybody involved if I can. But man, go out and stalk these people like they're animals and shoot them down and kill a woman because she chose the hard right instead of the easy left. She chose to do the right thing, even though it was extremely difficult for her. And allegedly, she got killed for it. Nobody has said that Boelter killed her because she voted to take away illegal aliens' health care. It just kind of all makes sense, right? It kind of all just fits in with each other. Governor Walz was hanging his hat on the fact that we're welcoming everybody. We don't turn anybody away as long as they're not a criminal, which also is bullshit. Because a lot of illegal immigrants in the state of Minnesota are criminals. Not all of them. Well, I take that back. All of them are criminals. They're criminals just by being here. But I believe that it's true that there are people here who are undocumented, here illegally, that aren't looking to cause trouble, that aren't looking to commit crimes. and probably do work very hard. They say that they pay taxes, they contribute to the community. Okay. Well, that's great. They're doing some of the right stuff, but under the premise of already being a criminal by committing the crime of being here. Kind of like that old saying, right, where you can do 1,000 things perfectly, and you do one or two things completely wrong, and it overshadows all the shit that you did that was good. It's kind of the same idea that I have about illegal migrants. Yeah, they may be here working on the farms and doing the jobs that many people say Americans don't want to do. Well, okay, that's great. But you're still here illegally. And so you got to go correct it by all means. Pull your ticket and wait your turn in line and do the right thing. And then there's no problem. But for some reason, that can't be the narrative. The narrative has to be that they're here already. Let's leave them alone. But the problem with that, in my opinion, is we don't know who they are. We don't know where they've been. We don't know what they've done. And we have no idea what they might do. You know, and in the Army, they used to tell us all the time, one of you fucks up, you're going to screw it up for everybody. So you better all have a conversation. Our leadership would tell us every now and then, you guys better all have a conversation and make sure that you're all on the same page of doing the right thing. Because one of you fucks up, all of you fuck up. So take it upon yourselves to figure out what path it is that you want to choose. Everybody does it the right way as a team, or you all fail as a team. And so that mentality is kind of how I see illegal immigration. There's enough shitbirds that came in illegally that are doing the wrong thing, that are committing crimes, that are raping our children and women, selling them, bringing drugs, doing all kinds of shit. It just wrecked it. It wrecked it for everybody else who may have been here illegally, who was wrong, but then not really causing any other problems. And they're working on the farms, and they're working here, and they're doing this, and they're paying taxes maybe, and all this other stuff. Well, okay, but that's too bad, because all of your other compadres fucked it up for you. So it's time to go home, sit down for a little bit, get yourself into the process. If you've been here long enough, you shouldn't have a problem understanding the process. So go through it, do the right thing, and nobody will have a problem. But I think that there's still more questions to be answered about Vance Boelter and his connections and his wife's connections. And I think if you haven't, you should watch the interviews of the roommate, the Papa John's delivery driver. Something about all the words he's saying and the way that he's addressing the reporters that are asking him questions just seems a little off, seems a little different. And of course, everything could be on the up and up. He could be telling 100% of the truth and really not know anything, but it just seems a little off. So I don't know. I don't know that I need to render a decision or explanation for anybody. I think that's up to you to draw your own conclusion. And I think if we keep watching, we're going to at least be told what happened. And they'll probably put him in prison for the rest of his life, or they'll kill him off and give him the death penalty so he can't talk, maybe, if he knows anything. But my assumption is that there's some kind of treachery afoot. And whether or not we're ever told about it is a whole nother question. But there are a lot of people out there who are a lot better investigators than I am, that have a lot more time to look into this stuff than I do. And I'm sure that we're going to hear a lot of interesting ideas. We're going to hear a lot of interesting theories. Maybe some of them will be legit, maybe some of them conspiracy. But that's the beautiful thing about America, right? We can choose to consume our information from wherever and however we want. And we draw our own conclusions. And I don't know that if it wasn't Vance Boelter, and it was somebody else in that mask, which is also another theory that was put out. The pictures of him in the cowboy hat and some surveillance camera, and the picture of him standing at the door of a state politician, they look like two completely different builds. One looks tall and fat, and the other one looks not as tall and quite a bit slimmer. But again, he had a full face mask on and probably some baggy clothes that say police on him. So is it possible it's the same person? Yeah, it's possible. But there is a theory out there that it's not the same person. So it's already starting. So you draw your own conclusions. I just thought there was some questions and there was some weird things going on, and we weren't really told a lot of information about how the police were contacted, why they were there, how all of that works, and why they were always just, at least in 2 instances, just minutes behind him. And thankfully, when the real police showed up to Hortman's house, thankfully they hadn't showed up earlier before Vance Boelter got out of his car, because he probably would have took off and went to the next person on the list. Another theory out there is that, well, the 2 people that were shot were H's, Hortman and Hoffman. That leaves a whole lot of other letters in the alphabet. Is there another part of the list? Does somebody else have it? Is there another person out there stalking our politicians? I sure hope not. Maybe he acted alone, but nobody really knows yet. So anyway, it all could be conspiracy. But I think we should just sit back and watch, but stay vigilant. I think that things like this happening in our communities is extremely tragic. But if there's anything to learn from it, it's that this stuff can happen anywhere. It can happen in any community. It can go down at any time, in any place. So stay vigilant. Give people a second look if they look fishy. And if somebody's banging on your door at 4 o'clock in the morning, screaming that they're the police, and there's nothing wrong in your house, there's no medical emergency, there's no fire, there's no this, there's no that, don't open your door. Call 911 and confirm that the police are at your house. And if not, hopefully you're a person that believes in defending yourself, and you can arm yourself and defend you and your family and your property. But this may not be the end of the political violence in this country. I think we've seen over the last few weeks that there's a lot of unstable situations going on in our communities. So stay vigilant, stay abreast of what's happening around you. Don't get complacent. Do what you can do to, of course, enjoy the time that you have with friends and family or whatever, getting to and from work safely, making sure your kids are safe, but stay vigilant. Watch out. I guess that's all I got. I guess that's all I got to say after 48 minutes of spouting off at the mouth. Let us know. Let us know down below what you think about any of this stuff. Do you think that some of these things are fishy? The timeline stuff? Was this all about? Was this all about the vote? I mean, Senator Hoffman, the gentleman that was shot but didn't die, voted against it also, apparently. So what's really going on here? What do you think? Let us know down below. Drop us a like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. If not, then thanks for watching. But everybody else, take it easy. We'll see you next time.